Ladies and gentlemen, there is something sacred, something so utterly profound in the act of surrender. It is not weakness, it is not passivity, it is not resignation, it is a laying down of one's will, not out of despair, but out of love. When a person reaches that holy moment, when the heart whispers, not from the lips, but from the depths of the spirit, not my will, but thine be done, something shifts in the unseen realm. Heaven leans in. The angels take notice, the heart of God is moved. There is a divine exchange that begins to take place. The plans you held so tightly, the dreams that seemed so perfect in your own mind, the things you were so certain would make you happy, suddenly, in the presence of perfect love, they lose their grip on you. They begin to fall away like leaves in autumn, not with violence, but with peace, and what remains is something more beautiful than what you ever dared to imagine. There is a beauty that only comes when the will has been crucified, when the self has been yielded, when the striving ends. And how strange it is, how upside down to the world, that in the very place of letting go you find yourself held more securely than ever before. You are no longer carried by your own strength, no longer propped up by your own plans. You are carried by the hand of the one who fashioned you in your mother's womb, who knew your name before the foundation of the world. There is something so liberating in finally realizing, I do not have to figure it all out. I do not have to strain to control every outcome. I do not have to fear missing the mark. All I must do is yield. All I must do is let him choose for me. We live in a world that idolizes choice. The more options, the more autonomy, the more control. So says the culture, the better. But the kingdom of God is not built on self-direction. It is built on surrender. The world will tell you to trust your heart, to follow your feelings, to chase your dreams. But those who have walked with God for any length of time know that feelings are fickle, dreams change, and the heart can be deceived. And so there is wisdom, deep, ancient, eternal wisdom, in coming before the Father and saying, you choose, you decide. I trust you more than I trust myself. Do you think he doesn't know what is best for you? Do you think he who holds the stars in place, who commands the oceans where to stop, who numbers the hairs on your head, do you think he would make a mistake with your life? There are no mistakes in the will of God. There are no regrets in letting him choose. There may be pain. There may be seasons of waiting, of uncertainty, of sacrifice. But even in the silence, he is not absent. Even when you don't understand, he is working. Oh, how he is working. Behind every no is a greater yes. Behind every closed door is a greater glory. He sees the path not just as it is, but as it shall be. And when he chooses for you, it will not always make sense to those around you. They may say, why are you walking away from this opportunity? Why are you letting go of that relationship? Why are you choosing the narrow way? But you will know. Deep in your spirit, you will know that it is because you have heard the whisper of the Holy One. You have sensed the tug of the divine hand. You have tasted the sweetness of his leadership, and now you want nothing less. You want his way, his choice, his timing, his plan, and do not think that surrender is a one-time act. No, it is daily. It is moment by moment. It is a lifestyle. Every morning you awaken and say again, Lord, not my will. Every step you take, you check the compass of your heart. Is this his way or mine? Every decision, great or small, is brought before him. And sometimes you will wrestle. Sometimes the flesh will rise up and demand its own path. But the Spirit, the Spirit will gently lead you back to that holy place of surrender. And the more you yield, the more you trust. And the more you trust, the more peace you carry. You no longer need to manipulate, to strive, to orchestrate outcomes. You simply walk. You simply obey. You simply rest in the knowledge that his ways are higher, his thoughts are deeper, and his love is unsearchable. Letting God choose for you is not about losing your identity. It is about discovering it. It is not the end of your dreams. It is the beginning of far greater ones. born not of ambition, but of divine design. It is the sacred yielding of the pen, allowing him to write the story. You may have written a beautiful first draft, but when he takes over, every chapter begins to sing with purpose. The delays are not empty. The detours are not wasted. Every moment is crafted by hands that only ever move in love. There is a kind of sorrow that sits quietly in the soul, too deep for words, too sacred to be shouted. It is the sorrow of looking back and realizing how often we chose our own way. We thought we knew what we wanted. We chased after things that glittered, things that sparkled in the light of our own desires. We ran with such energy, such determination, convinced that if we could just reach that next level, that next relationship, that next open door, we would finally be satisfied. But when we got there, when we stood on the ground we fought to gain, it didn't feel the way we thought it would. It was hollow, it was dry. We stood in the middle of what we had built, only to find that it did not hold the weight of our souls. How many hearts have been broken not by the devil, but by their own choices? How many lives have wandered into wilderness not because God led them there, but because they took the map into their own hands and said, "I'll find the way myself"? It is not always rebellion that causes this. Sometimes it is fear. Sometimes it is impatience. Sometimes it is the aching need to prove that we are capable, competent, wise, but the result is the same. A life designed for divine appointment becomes a life ruled by self-appointment, and though we may smile and succeed and move among people as if all is well, something inside us knows we are not where we were meant to be. There is a heavy cost to choosing for ourselves. There are years that can be spent in relationships God never blessed, careers God never anointed, places He never asked us to go. And though His mercy is always present, though His grace is never far, the ache of being out of alignment with His will cannot be dulled by applause or money or success. The tragedy is not just in the consequences we endure, it is in the moments we miss. The moments where He would have poured out His Spirit in ways we couldn't imagine. The divine encounters we were too busy to see, the gentle leading we were too distracted to hear. When we insist on doing things our way, we may achieve a version of success, but we forfeit the fragrance of divine intimacy. We exchange power for performance, presence for popularity, calling for comfort. So many lives lie in ruins not because they lacked opportunity, but because they lacked surrender. The heart that pushes ahead without prayer is like a ship without a compass. It may move, but it is lost. The tragedy of self-appointment is not that God abandons us. He never does. It is that we, in our striving, distance ourselves from His voice. We clutter our days with decisions that were never meant to be made alone. We fill our hearts with anxieties that were never meant to be carried without Him. And still He waits. He does not force. He does not shame. He simply waits, lovingly, patiently, for us to remember, for us to turn. For us to say again, "Lord, I'm tired of choosing for myself." How easy it is to run ahead of God when we mistake ambition for calling. We convince ourselves that the opportunity must be from Him because it looks good, feels good, opens doors. But not every open door is divine. Not every success is sacred, and not every yes from man carries the yes of heaven. When we build our lives on our own choices, we are like children constructing castles out of sand. It may look magnificent in the sunlight, but one wave of testing, one storm of life, and it crumbles. But how often we learn this only in hindsight, after the foundation has cracked, after the fruit has soured, after the dream has died. Yet even in our self-made choices, He is merciful. He calls us back. He does not mock our attempts. He does not shame us for trying, but He reminds us again and again that we were never meant to carry the weight of destiny on our own shoulders. We were never meant to navigate the path without His guiding hand. And when we come to that place of brokenness, when the dust of our own building settles and we finally lift our eyes, it is there in that holy moment that he meets us again. Not with condemnation, but with compassion. Not with anger, but with invitation. He whispers, "Let me choose for you now. Let me lead. Let me restore." We do not always see the danger in our own decisions until the peace lifts, until the presence feels distant, until the fruit turns bitter in our mouths. But oh, what grace that even in the midst of our own making, he continues to beckon us back. He still longs to write the story. He still longs to redeem what was lost. And for every path we took without him, he is able to weave it into a tapestry we could not comprehend. The ruins of self-appointment can become the altar of surrender. The broken plans can become the birthplace of divine purpose. But it begins with honesty. It begins with acknowledging, "Lord, I chose for myself, and it was not your way. But I come now, weary, ready, and I ask you choose for me." There is a vast difference between a life that is busy and a life that is supernatural. One can be full of motion and activity, yet completely void of divine power. The supernatural does not come from hustle. It does not come from the brilliance of man or the effort of the flesh. It comes from a place of deep surrender, of yieldedness, of allowing God to direct every step, every word, every moment. The supernatural follows divine direction, not human ambition. There is a flow, a rhythm, a movement that comes only when the Spirit of God is the one leading. And unless he leads, unless he chooses, the result is weariness, not wonder. There are many who desire the supernatural, miracles, breakthroughs, divine encounters, but they are unwilling to relinquish control. They want heaven to move, but only according to their timetable. They want God's power, but only on their terms. But he does not operate that way. He is not a power to be harnessed. He is a person to be followed. The life that sees the miraculous is not the life of the one who runs ahead with their own plans and asks for God's blessing. It is the life of the one who waits, who listens, who follows, even when it costs, even when it hurts, even when it doesn't make sense. The supernatural does not respond to manipulation. It responds to obedience. So many live under pressure, trying to make things happen, trying to force outcomes, trying to manufacture results. And in all the striving, they miss the quiet instruction of the Spirit, the still small voice that says, "Go this way, not that way. Speak now, be silent now, wait, move." It is in the obedience to these divine whispers that the supernatural breaks in, not with fanfare, not always with lightning and thunder, but with holy precision, with the unmistakable mark of God. It is not about eloquence. It is not about perfection. It is not about charisma. It is about alignment. A life aligned with heaven becomes a channel through which heaven flows. There is no limit to what God can do with a person who is completely surrendered. The smallest act of obedience becomes the catalyst for the miraculous. The simplest word, spoken at his prompting, can unlock breakthrough in another's life. But this can only happen when the soul is fully yielded, when the agenda is laid down, when the need to be seen or validated or successful is crucified at the altar of God's will. We often pray for power. We cry out for revival. We ask for signs and wonders. But the pathway to power is not paved with performance. It is paved with surrender. The anointing does not fall upon those who build their own kingdoms. It rests upon those who bow low, who walk humbly, who refuse to move without the cloud, who will not go unless the fire leads. There is a cost to this kind of life. It is the cost of being misunderstood. It is the cost of delay, of letting go, of trusting when everything in you wants to act. But the reward is his presence. The reward is his power moving through you in ways you could never orchestrate. There is no formula. There is no system. The supernatural cannot be taught. It must be caught. It must be lived. And it is only found on the narrow road of obedience. It is only revealed to those who have died to self and made room for the Spirit to lead. You can be surrounded by noise and still miss His voice. You can be full of knowledge and still lack power. You can have every qualification in the eyes of man and still be spiritually bankrupt. But when your ear is tuned to His voice, when your heart is bent toward His will, when your steps are ordered not by convenience but by conviction, that is where heaven meets earth. That is where the supernatural unfolds. There is no striving in the Spirit. There is no pressure to perform. There is only rest. Rest in knowing you are not the one who makes it happen. You are simply the vessel. You are simply the one who said yes, who laid down the plans, who released the right to control, who said, "Speak, Lord, and I will go. Lead, and I will follow." And in that posture, in that position, miracles begin to take place. Lives are changed. Doors open. Chains break, not because of you, but through you. And isn't that what we long for? Not to impress, not to accumulate, not to achieve, but to be used, to be so led by God that we walk into divine appointments without even knowing it. That our very presence shifts the atmosphere, not because of our charisma, but because of His glory. That is the supernatural life, not always loud, not always visible, but deeply, unmistakably powerful. It is the result of divine direction, not human effort. It is born in intimacy, cultivated in obedience, and manifested in the lives of those who have made the Spirit's voice their only compass. To let God choose for you is to walk a path that is rarely straight, often quiet, and always marked by trust. It is a journey that does not rely on what the eyes can see or what the mind can understand. It calls for something deeper, something that cannot be taught in books or learned through logic. It demands faith, pure, unwavering, childlike faith, the kind of faith that keeps walking when the road disappears, the kind of faith that believes He is good, even when the situation is anything but, the kind of faith that says, "I don't need to see to believe. I believe, and that is enough." This is where many turn back. This is where the surrender becomes too costly for some. Because it is one thing to say you trust God when everything is clear and the doors are opening, but it is another thing entirely to keep trusting when everything is silent, when every door stays closed, when the answers don't come and the nights stretch long with waiting, when it feels like others are moving forward and you are left behind, when it seems that your obedience has led you not to comfort but to confusion. And still, in that place you whisper, "You choose for me, Lord." There is no greater test of the heart than trusting God when you cannot trace Him, when everything in you wants to take matters into your own hands, when the temptation to settle is stronger than the call to wait, when compromise would be easier than continuing in faith. Yet those who wait, those who trust will find that He was never late, He was never distant, He was never absent. He was writing a story, painting a masterpiece, setting something in motion that would have been impossible if you had chosen for yourself. But you didn't, you waited, you trusted. And heaven took notice. There is a weight that comes with the unknown, a heaviness that presses against your heart when you have nothing to hold on to but His word. And in those moments the enemy comes. He whispers lies, subtle and poisonous. Did God really say, "What if you missed it? What if nothing ever comes?" And yet the soul that has learned to trust beyond the visible will not be shaken by the enemy's voice, because it knows another voice, gentler, deeper, eternal, a voice that speaks not to the mind, but to the spirit, a voice that says, "I am with you. I have not forgotten you. I choose only what is best for you." God does not show you everything at once, not because He is withholding, but because He is protecting you. There are things you could not yet understand, places He is taking you that require a deeper strength than you currently possess. So He leads you step by step, layer by layer, moment by moment, and as you trust Him, He transforms you. You become more than someone who follows. You become someone who rests, someone who does not need signs to move, who does not need evidence to believe. Someone who lives not by the changing light of circumstance, but by the steady flame of faith. To let God choose for you is to relinquish the idol of clarity. It is to lay down the need for immediate answers. It is to find peace in the not knowing. There is a hidden grace in uncertainty because it draws you closer to the one who knows all things. It makes you lean into his heart. It teaches you to walk not by sight, but by presence. The presence of the one who goes before you, walks beside you, and follows behind you. The one who weeps when you weep, who strengthens when you falter, who rejoices when you trust. You will find that the longer you walk with him, the less you need to understand, the less you need to figure out, the less you need to defend your choices or explain your waiting, because your confidence is no longer in outcomes. It is in him, in his nature, in his character, in his unfailing goodness. And when you begin to live this way, the world takes notice, not because you are loud, but because you are unshakable, not because you have all the answers, but because you have found the answer. A quiet confidence marks your life. A deep peace anchors your soul, and others begin to wonder, what is it that sustains you? And you know it is not what, but who. It is the one who chooses for you. He knows the end from the beginning. He sees what you cannot. He understands what you never will. He is not bound by time or circumstance or limitation. And in the secret place, when you close your eyes and whisper once again, "You choose for me, Lord," heaven responds. Not always with lightning or fanfare, but with movement, with direction, with grace for the next step, with strength for the journey, with peace that surpasses all understanding, because the God who chooses for you is faithful. And though you may not see it now, you are walking into something greater than anything you could have planned on your own.